Today on Locked On Red Wings, we got a new bench boss in Detroit, Derek Lalonde out, and Todd Mclellan in.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 men's hockey. And Scotty, when we left on, Tuesday's episode, we were in a very somber place heading into the holiday. But then Steve Yzerman left a nice gift under our tree, and that was a new head coach in Todd Mclellan. So, Scotty, first, I hope you and all the listeners had a wonderful Christmas. To those who celebrate, happy Hanukkah, as that is now ongoing, and whatever other holidays, happy holidays to everyone else. If there's any major ones that I'm not listing. But, Scotty, initial reaction to the firing of Derek Lalonde and the hiring of Todd Mclellan.
Well, I digested it in that order. My first reaction had nothing to do with the replacement and just was strictly, I was legitimately surprised they did it. And I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm not sure if that's you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah. I get it. I don't.
We were ready about a month ago. So
yeah.
I think it kind of surprised me that it happened. I mean, when it did, I guess maybe a little. I mean, they got a game tomorrow. They got a game on Friday. So if there was a change over the holiday break, then it needed to kind of happen. But I was a little surprised, and I was in favor of it, as we've talked about a lot. We've thought a change has been kind of needed for a while now. So I'm hoping that the team can, I'm honestly, and we'll talk about this at the very end of the show when we talk about the Toronto game for like 5 seconds, is just like, I'm excited to see what the new, system hopefully entails, media availability and whatnot Friday. I'm excited to hear about what the new look Detroit Red Wings are going to look like. And So I think that was really my first reaction, was just, wow, they actually did it. They actually did it. And not only that, but the replacement is a familiar name that has had ties to the Wings. I think from that perspective, my biggest, my immediate thought with McLellan was it's a commitment. This is not just interim, we'll see how it maybe plays out the rest of the year. This is immediately multi-year deal. Like he got signed to a multi-year deal immediately. It's already, pen to paper. It's all set. That is rare. That is very rare for that to happen mid-season. Obviously, if a firing happens in the offseason, you see replacements with multi-year deals. You don't see too often a head coach firing in any sport, really, mid-season, and the replacement that is also hired mid-season is given a multi-year deal. So hopefully tomorrow we see, Friday we'll hear about more of the contract details and whatnot. We can break that down a little further on Monday. But I think that was kind of my gut reaction to both of those. Was one, surprised that Newsy was actually let go when he was. And two is that, McLellan, the commitment there is long-term immediately. Like this is a statement, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and for me, my first reaction, Scotty, was just sheer excitement. And it wasn't excitement to what you're saying. It wasn't excitement over the fact that Todd Mclellan was the new head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. And we'll talk about our expectations with him and what fans should expect just based on his track record. But it was just pure excitement that they did it. I'm not trying to turn this into tear down Derek Lalonde as a person now, but
wish him nothing but the best, genuinely.
Yeah, he seems like, I was all in on, we've talked about Derek Lalonde. I was all in on Derek Lalonde when they hired him. I like the things he talked about, being a possession-heavy team, being a defensive-heavy team, neither of those things really ever came to full fruition. And in his final season here, the opposite was really true, especially with the possession aspect of everything. So it became abundantly clear that they needed to move on. And so I was pumped that they made the move because it means a couple different things to me in regards to how Yzerman views this season. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode. But you said a couple things that I wanted to respond to in your first thought. One was like you were surprised. And like, I was kind of surprised, but not surprised at the same time, because after our conversation on Tuesday, like it felt like it had to be done. The game against the Blues, the team looked like they gave up on the coach, and you can't continue to trot a team out there for 50 plus games and have that be okay. And that is something we talked about. And so when it happened, for me, it wasn't so much surprise as it was like, oh, they actually did it. Thank God. It was more of relief, honestly, more than surprise.
Sure.
Because it felt like the no-brainer thing to do, and it felt like it was coming. Like I felt like the last couple of days
is over. Like the conversation that we have to have after every loss about like, oh, like, is it time? Whatever. Like, it's just that it's finally behind us. It's kind of a weight off the shoulders almost of the fan base.
Yeah, because, and if you think about it too, the game was on Tuesday, right? Or the game was on Monday. And Tuesday and Wednesday were Christmas Eve and Christmas. So I had in my back of my head, I'm like, if they're going to fire Derek Lalonde, it's going to be on Thursday. And I mean, we were having discussions about maybe not even recording today, right, barring breaking news. And I mean, the breaking news we were barring was this.
Right.
And so,
I'm
like,
in between Christmas obligations right now. I'm literally recording in the like 1.5 hour window I have in between two Christmas obligations. Yes.
So I wasn't surprised that it happened. I was relieved that it actually happened.
Yeah, fair.
Now
that might be a better way to word it. Yeah.
Right. And your comment about the commitment, right? Like going on to Todd Mclellan and that being the head coach. The thing that was crazy to me was like you get the notification, and this is not new if you're a Red Wings fan, but the Red Wings broke their own news about their new head coaching hire. Like nobody had it. Every time there's a new head coaching hire, like Elliot Friedman gets it first, Jeff Merrick, or
Friedman just
Frank
shot
Cervelli.
down the fake report that was going out of like 24 hours ago. He's like, hey, this is a fake account. Don't listen, whatever. Right.
And so that's what surprised me about it was like, it wasn't, oh, we're letting go of Derek Lalonde and it's going to be an interim head coach. It's, we've hired Todd Mclellan to be the 29th head coach in the Detroit Red Wings history. And then at a footnote, it's like, we've let go Bob Boughner and Derek Lalonde. And notably, they also hired Trent Yawney to be the assistant coach as well. He's also a new hire too. He was a defenseman in the NHL. And I think he's pretty much followed Boughner everywhere he's gone since, San Jose, and then he was an assistant coach in Anaheim, so they separated for a little bit, but then reunited in LA. So they've been together for a long time as a head coach and assistant, Trent Yawney and Todd Mclellan. So my first reaction was more like, oh my God, they actually did it, thank goodness, because it needed to happen.
Right.
As far as like the implications on what this means for this season, Scotty, like hiring Todd Mclellan is a big deal. Because what that says to me is Yzerman has not yet given up on this season, or at the very minimum has not given up on establishing a winning culture in the locker room. You were bringing it up with A.J. Hinch the other day. Even when the team was losing, A.J. Hinch was preaching winning. And bringing in Todd Mclellan is exactly what I was asking for the other day, is you fire your head coach to hold somebody accountable. And now by bringing in Todd Mclellan, you're saying, I know you're losing, and that's not okay, so here is a new head coach right now that even if you're 8-10 points out of a wild card, I still expect you guys to compete and push. What that says to me is the hiring right now, not an interim head coach and then hiring somebody in the season, is Yzerman has not given up on the locker room, he has not given up on the players, and he has not given up on the season. Even if they don't make the playoffs, he still expects this team to try and compete for something even if they're out. And honestly, that's music to my ears. As beautiful as getting a top 5 pick would have been, how much of a twist of the knife would it have been to the gut of Red Wings fans who've been waiting for this team to get better and better and better just to fall 5th overall again? This team needs to learn how to win, and this team needs to have the right mindset in the locker room. So hiring a new head coach immediately to be and it's a multi-year deal. Like he's not here, he's the next guy. He is the guy. That is the right response to me, and I am very happy that Yzerman went out and did that. Now, We'll talk in segment 2. I'll give you a chance to respond here. Sorry, I've been rambling for a little bit. But we'll talk about segment 2, our expectations of Mclellan. But, Scotty, what do you got to say about, the idea of bringing Mclellan on a multi-year deal to replace Lalonde rather than going to an interim?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says exactly what you just stated. Like, I really think that you hit the nail on the head there. This is all just about a statement being made of, you know what? I still fully, from Yzerman's perspective, the front office still fully believes in this team and the fact that even if they can't turn it around for this year and it's too far gone for this season, that they absolutely can turn it around and that this core and this group can be competitive going forward. And it's not just, you know what? We're gonna, like we were talking about last week, and really every single time we've had the Lalonde conversation over the last month is like, okay, well, are they just gonna throw in the towel for this year and just take the high draft pick and just see what happens, whatever? No, they are actively still trying to find ways to win, and I really do think that that's exactly what it means. Now, is it going to work? That's a conversation for segment 2 here, but like that is, I think, what the message is from the front office at a minimum.
Yeah, I think that's a really succinct way of putting it. It's not about firing Derek Lalonde wasn't about bottoming out. It was about turning it around and taking a step in the right direction. Yeah. Even if you don't make the playoffs, it's about taking a step back in the right direction rather than just bottoming out and letting the culture fall apart.
Right.
So, Scotty, we're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about Todd Mclellan himself, his track record as a coach in the NHL, and what we think that Mclellan might bring to the Detroit Red Wings. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. They are focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's a perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Using the all-in pricing toggle, you can see the total up front without any surprise fees at checkout and get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy in the app. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, Todd Mclellan is an NHL head coach who has coached over 1,000 games in the NHL. What should the Red Wings and Red Wings fans, I guess, should they expect from Todd Mclellan as the bench boss?
Well, I think this is going to be very similar to the conversation we just had before the break. I think it is imperative that you see a pretty good product pretty early on. Like this is and maybe this isn't exactly answering your question, but this is what I'm looking for. Like this is, again, a multi-year commitment. I cannot stress how weird that is to give out mid-season enough. And so if it is truly just, okay, like this is the next guy, that's quick. That's whiplash, right? Like that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Not only is the loan gone, we have the next long-term guy immediately. We better see, I think we need to see some confidence in not only just from the players that they haven't looked like they've had in a while, but I think it's fair as a fan base that we can look back after game 82 this year and be like, you know what, we're confident that this is the right decision. This is gutsy. Like, don't get it twisted. This is a maybe the Lalonde firing isn't gutsy, but the Mclellan hiring to a multi-year deal absolutely is. And so I think just getting some confidence within the fan base that this is the right move and this is going to be a positive thing early on would go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. Signing him to a multi-year deal means that he is the next head coach, and that this is the coach that Yzerman expects to help take this team in the right direction and the next step forward. Whether or not that happens this year, 10 points out of a playoff spot, remains to be seen. That's tall task, but you expect to see them head in the right direction this season and take another step next year now. Now, when it comes to his track record, right, I think most Red Wings fans, at least by now, are familiar with the fact that he was the assistant coach with the Detroit Red Wings from 2005 to 2008, won a Stanley Cup as an assistant coach. From there, he was the head coach of the San Jose Sharks for 7 seasons, where really good Sharks teams, 3 straight division championships, a President's Trophy, and 2 Western Conference Finals appearances as well, before he was finally let go after they missed the playoffs in his final year. He went to the Edmonton Oilers for a few years, had less success there before going to the LA Kings, and he was the head coach there that helped turn that team from a rebuilding team to a perennial playoff contender again. Now, his regular season statistics are very good. For the most part, he makes the playoffs more often than he doesn't. Yeah. And those
really
obviously
the only hiccup, I mean, that was a weird Edmonton team. I don't even really I shouldn't say I don't count it, but that was exiting a rebuild team itself. But
very imperfect Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, right. But the only big hiccup was the end of his Kings tenure. They couldn't stop losing, and that's why he was fired mid-season. That was this year, or was it the end of last year? Was that the end?
Last year?
So yeah, last season I know, but I meant calendar year. Sorry. Anyway, I think that's really the only huge blemish regular season wise on there. Now, obviously, the big talking point already is the lack of playoff success, which I sure is your transition here.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the big thing that Red Wings fans should kind of be on the lookout for is, he made it to the Western Conference Final twice with the Sharks. That was in his second and third year with the San Jose Sharks, right at the peak of their dominance of the Western Conference. Remember those Red Wings series against them? That was those years. The back-to-back years where they got bounced by the Sharks in the second round. Those are the Todd Mclellan San Jose Sharks. But it was also over a decade ago. So, that's great, and those teams were great, but I look a lot more recently at recent success, and he's been bounced in the first round twice in the 2 years prior to that. Again, this was an LA team that was coming out of a rebuild and is getting back to domination. And so it's a better team now than it was then, but last year, like you said, Scotty, he was kind of the transitionary coach for them, and once they got to the playoffs and couldn't move past it, that's when they got rid of him, and that is something that I would be on the lookout for as Red Wings fans as a red flag. But that being, which is why overall I'm a little
you got to get there to be mad at somebody about not winning in the postseason, man.
Right. He hasn't made it past the second round of the playoffs since 2011, which is the thing that I'm worried about.
For sure.
Which is why overall I'm an It's it's a very coaching carousel hire, but there's so many head coaches in the NHL spend a few years with the team, have moderate playoff success, and get bound. Pete DeBoer of the Dallas Stars, who's often talked about as one of the best coaches in the NHL, is a carousel coach. Yeah. So it really it comes down to finding
there's a laundry list. Yeah.
Right time, right fit type thing. So, and like you said, I'm not really worried about the playoff success thing until we make the playoffs.
Right.
Once we start making the playoffs,
not winning playoff games when we have a good team that should be winning playoff games and doesn't in the playoffs. I'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
And for the most part, the teams that he's had that were expected to have success found success in the regular season. And that is something as Red Wings fans, that's the first step we're looking for right now, is finding consistent regular season success. And he had that with many of the teams he was with. I think it was Prashant Iyer that tweeted out something along the lines that he is pretty consistently on the better end of possession metrics when he is the head coach, which is something that we struggle with.
I welcome that with open arms.
So as far as structure, I'm not too sure yet. I still am doing more research to try and figure out what kind of style of hockey the Red Wings will play. But his track record in the regular season speaks to him being a pretty good head coach. And just one, like many coaching carousel coaches, that eventually the message got stale when they weren't finding success. So hopefully he can bring that regular season success here and the fit is right. Overall, I'm kind of lukewarm on it. But this is a coach that has experience and success, and that is also the kind of change we needed after having 2 first-time head coaches behind the bench. We needed somebody with experience and regular season success. Also, not for nothing either is I think that the way he carries himself can be a benefit as well. A lot of criticism was doled out to Derek Lalonde for not having enough fire, and Todd Mclellan does have fire in him. If you've ever watched, he will call out his players. when they're underperforming. So I think he brings an aspect like that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that the part about having a track record is a great one. This is not another first-time head coach, which, as you mentioned, the last two were. I think that that's very important. And I think that it's important for where this team is at right now, right? Like, they are looking for someone to lead a locker room into the postseason that has done it before and has proven that they can get to the postseason before. And he has done that a lot. And this locker room, from a player's perspective, especially when you look at the core, doesn't really have that. They don't, and they have their veterans, right, who are hopefully leading the way and being loud kind of locker room presences to help right the ship. But, from like the best players on this team have zero playoff experience, right? Like, most of the really good players we have are all very inexperienced in that department. So I think having someone at the helm that's done it is a great point by you. And yeah, he has hair. That's something the last two haven't had too. So,
I take that. I take offense
to
that.
Get wrecked, dude.
That's a shot at me, I swear. And I mean, to the advanced analytics crowd out there, I mean, his last full season with the LA Kings, right? They were a top 10 team in expected goals for percentage, and they were 6th in Corsi for percentage. Yeah. So off more times than not. And again, talent goes as part of that, but he was able to instill a possession heavy game into those LA Kings teams. Didn't make it past the first round, and then got bounced by Edmonton, ironically, in both those last two seasons he had. But I remember early on last year, before he got fired and the team started spiraling, early on last year, the LA Kings were unbeatable for some reason. They were on fire before they started slipping. So this is a guy who's going to be, I think, is going to be good for the Red Wings in the regular season. We'll see about the playoffs if we ever actually make the playoffs. We'll worry about that then.
That's such a ridiculous thing to be worried about when you're one of the worst teams in hockey currently.
End of the day, I mean, it's not the most exciting hire in the world, but it is I think, the right move to make.
You're not going to find a really exciting move in the middle of the regular season.
Right.
Like, that's like, this is, And again, I think the biggest thing is just that they're not going interim to get to the offseason to then find their long-term guy. They're just all in right now. So we'll see what happens.
I'll be very happy if we start possessing the puck. I will nominate him for the Jack Adams if we have a 50%
for real. I'll be thrilled, even if they're not, winning enough games to catapult themselves back into the playoff picture. If they just possess the puck and play some defense, I think I'm going to be over the moon. So.
Right. We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about Alex Tanguay, because he's still here. He don't go away.
Can't
not
shake
that we
him.
need him to. And what this means for Steve Yzerman as well. So stay tuned to that in segment 3. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can place and finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It is thrilling. Scotty, did I say this already? I may have already shared this on an episode earlier this week, but I bet on the Commanders to win the game, the money line of the Commanders, as their final drive started. And that won me a nice $3 because I'm a coward who only puts down $1 at a time. But I won that on FanDuel, so just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
The NFL.
I hate you so much. I knew as soon as, I was halfway through saying it, I was like, no, I'm saying it too weird again. He's going to mock me.
The NFL.
Oh,
$202. The NFL. We're back, baby.
All right. Scotland. Alex Tanguay is still here. This will be his 3rd head coach with the Detroit Red Wings. Why do you think that is?
So that's a great question. I remember when he was brought in, and
wasn't it the final year of Blashill?
Yeah, well, it was Nolan and I still, and he was brought in, and they were, there's a lot of conversations about what his role was going to be and whatnot, and maybe this is too simplistic, but I really do think that might just be like a pulse of the locker room, and the players like him. And like, I have nothing to go on that. That is just me completely throwing a shot in the dark of why he has maintained. But I get the impression that, I mean, you see it in timeouts. Like, even when Lalonde was here in timeouts, he was, leading the charge every once in a while in those huddles. And obviously, I mean, they talk about his impact on special teams and whatnot. I have no clue, but I think that the players are fond of him. That's my guess.
I think it's even more simplistic than that. I think that they need to have at least one bald coach on the bench. They can't get rid of all of them. They have to have at least one.
That might be fair. That might be fair.
No, but in reality, I mean, I think I'm pretty confident he's in charge of the power play. The power play has been one of the more consistent aspects of this team. They had one year where they were like middle of the pack, and we were like, oh, we expect them to take a step forward, and they ended up being top 10. They're still floating around top 10. The power play has been in a funk lately, and I think a lot of that has to do with the morale in the locker room too, so hopefully you'll see that surge. But they were unbeatable on the power play early on in the season before getting into this funk. They're still floating around top 10. So I think a lot of it is, like you said, he is popular with the players, I'm sure, but he's also effective at his job. Yeah. The power play has been one of the most consistently effective pieces of the Detroit Red Wings the last couple seasons. So I think that's the main reason he's still around. And yeah, he joined the Red Wings as an assistant coach, Jeff Blashill's final season. He stuck around for Derek Lalonde, and he's at least to the end of this season, for as far as we can tell, going to be here with Todd Mclellan and Trent Yawney behind the bench. I forgot his name for a second. Luckily, it's on the screen there for me. The last piece of news, or last question I have before we get to Axel Sandin Pellikka, is what does this mean for Yzerman? You got to fire your head coach, but now the bullets are out of the gun and the gun's facing you, right? Like, there's no one else to scapegoat when this thing does not work. All the success and all the failure, in my opinion, are on Steve Yzerman's shoulders now.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a point. I feel like you and I have done a pretty good job highlighting the fact that this is not all Lalonde's fault. And like, this season is not in the gutter entirely because of him. And that this is a player, a roster construction issue. And while maybe not entirely, it certainly has played a large role. And so I wonder if Yzerman and Mclellan had, in their interviews or their conversations, talked about the roster as it stands currently and what they're looking to add in the future, and had a little bit more like big picture conversations in that regard, because it really wouldn't surprise me if Yzerman, well, obviously, like, you got to get better at possessing the puck and whatnot, but it wouldn't surprise me if maybe he went after someone that he thought was a better fit for the current core and the roster that he's constructed around it. So I think, in terms of big picture Yzerman, this season has really taken a huge hit to, I don't want to say like his reputation as a GM, but like it's really been a frustrating year for the fan base. And I think more and more people are starting to maybe criticize him a little bit more. And I think that that's very fair. And I think that if this does not work, then you're having a much, much harder conversation about kind of where the organization is going to stand with Yzerman here going into next season.
Yeah, because at this point, like, there's nothing left that you can really blame from the previous management, right? And obviously, Dylan Larkin is your captain, but Yzerman made him your captain. He's the one who gave him the extension. We can complain all day about not getting a top 3 pick in the draft when we were in our worst years, but like, at a certain point, you run out of excuses. And now that you've fired your head coach, and we talked about it, Lalonde was not getting 100% out of these players. This roster is too good to be playing as poor as they were, which is why he got fired. This also is not a great roster to begin with either. So now we're at a point, you've brought in a new head coach to try and get more out of these players, maybe get a system in place where you can get the most out of them. But if it's still not working at the end of this season, at the end of next year, you're really looking at a decision where it's like, okay, we tried it your way and it's not working, so.
Right.
And I mean, we're still waiting on some big time prospects, but I mean, that's
a good transition right there. Proud of you.
I wasn't transitioning, but I will transition because I was going to rant.
Okay. Well, it was. I was like, that was stellar. If that's what that was, but
I wish I was that smart, Scotty. I really.
Well, we
do.
can just pretend like you are. Yeah, good transition, bud.
Thank you.
You're just humble. Don't want to take credit for it.
I got a 25 on the ACT, and it's really showing in that transition. Axel Sandin. Oh, I'm not surprised. Axel Sandin Pellikka had a fantastic debut with Team Sweden during the World Junior Championship. He had 4 points against Slovakia, a hat trick and a primary assist.
Patty, baby.
I mean, Slovakia is not a bad team, not a great team. You know, they're middle of the road. Sweden is a powerhouse in international play. But Axel Sandin Pellikka just absolutely dominated, and that's what you want to see out of one of your first-round picks and top prospects. So let's talk about it. He's exciting.
Yeah. No, like it's just awesome, and it's something that on a day and like a 24-hour period that was already pretty impactful and loud for the Red Wings fan base. It was really cool to kind of add to that with some positivity on a future player. So yeah, awesome.
I mean, the fervor around the hockey community, even outside the Red Wings, is starting to build for Axel Sandin Pellikka because they're seeing him dominate in Sweden in the SHL, playing against full-grown men. Now they're seeing him at World Juniors, just look like he's a tier above them. Again, it's the first game, but that was an impressive debut against Slovakia. So the Red Wings have a really impressive offensive defenseman in Axel Sandin Pellikka. I'm not so sure how the defensive style of the game will develop on North American sheet of ice, but I think you're looking at a power play specialist, hopefully second pairing guy in Axel Sandin Pellikka, somebody who would really complement your great top pair of shutdown defensemen in Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider really well. You can deploy Edvinsson and deploy Seider in really tough situations, but then you're going to have Axel Sandin Pellikka to go out there on the offensive draws and score goals on the power play and score goals. I mean, it's a really, really promising future ahead for the Red Wings, assuming it pans out, and I'm hopeful and optimistic that it will for Axel Sandin Pellikka. Team USA is also playing as of recording this. I think it's late in the third period. They're winning 9-4 against Germany, and Trey Augustine started the game in net. Still waiting for the final statistics to come through for that. I'm not sure if he played the entire game or not because the USA is up big on Germany. And, of course, Max Plant is also playing for Team USA. No points for him yet, but keeping an eye on those guys as well. Yeah,
which is, juniors is awesome and is one of the more fun tournaments of the year. Something we love keeping an eye on here. And, over the last few years in the Yzerman era, especially, a lot more players for the Wings representing there, which is fun.
Absolutely. Not a lot this year, though. I think we're getting to a point now where a lot of our top prospects are finally starting to step up into the NHL. So
for
less
sure.
players. I think it's a handful. It's Plant, Augustine, Axel Sandin Pellikka, and I think there's one more whose name I'm forgetting. But those are the 4 that are at World Juniors for the Red Wings. A lot less than the 9 and 11 they had like the last 2
right,
years.
Yeah, they had double digits that one year, yeah.
Anyway, Scotty, Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow.
I'm just looking forward to what the system's going to look like, really. Like, it's our first kind of crack at what kind of system we're going to implement here.
Will we even see a system tomorrow? That's the better question because, I mean...
Maybe they lose 8-0, and it's just like, we have no clue what we're doing.
McClellan's first skate with the team is going to be in the morning tomorrow, and maybe he's just like, go out there and skate hard, have fun, remember how much you love the game of hockey, and we'll worry about, implementing a system on another day. Just like, I'll be looking for the energy is what I'll be looking for.
Yeah.
Do they come out? Because, you talk about the new coach bump, right? A lot of times that new coach bump is just players' excitement and having a new voice in the locker room because things were stagnant. Right. So if we see some excitement, we see some energy, I will take that as a positive sign. I don't know how much of a structure we're going to see, and we already know what the Toronto Maple Leafs are. So just go out there and play it hard. Really, that's all I'm looking for. Play hard. Have fun, play hard. We'll recap that game on Monday because this is technically it's a Thursday episode, but it was supposed to be a Friday episode, but this kind of called for an earlier debut.
Yeah. See you Monday.
See you Monday. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday. Same time, same place. See your team every day.
Every day.